Hi everyone, Atlas here. We just got off a call that I'm about to show you, which involved myself, Azael, Hysterics, and Munchables, and we're having a chat about Weibo versus T1 in the final. As you guys might know, myself, Chronicler, and Azael will be the ones casting the World Final, which we are all extraordinarily honored to be doing, especially, Faker's first World Final in Korea and all of that jazz. But what isn't going to be there is, a play-by-play or a color that is from the LPL, right? On the cast. So we wanted to make sure that we could get their stories across and make sure that we can tell the Weibo story as effectively as possible. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to actually record the entire thing because I'm a bit of an idiot and realized that I had to press the record button as well as the go live button. So we lost the first 10 minutes of the show. That's entirely on me, and I apologize. Didn't want to go back and sort of force everyone to do it again. So you're going to have to deal with me doing a bit of an intro here instead of actually having the very beginning and the intro portion of this show. I did do a little bit of a disclaimer to start us off, which was the fact that if you hear any of the LPL commentators saying anything about Weibo is going to win, that does not mean that they have anything against T1. Just means that they believe in their teams and their regions and are following their narratives a lot more than they are following that of the LCK, right? So bear that in mind when you do decide to critique some of the takes that they may have, because I think that if the shoe was on the other foot, you'd be thinking the same way. Just wanted to make sure that that was out there before we got this one started. So I did unfortunately cut off a big rant at the very beginning of this from Hysterics, explaining why Weibo was going to win. Pretty much, he said that the Shy is a god, and he's going to be the one to do it, and Zeus doesn't turn up in the finals, and that's going to be their road to victory if it does happen. He also did put in the caveat of he doesn't necessarily feel like it's a very likely scenario, and that T1 do look like the better team going into the final. Otherwise, it was a fantastic chat between the four of us to really get to the bottom of what makes Weibo tick, as well as, just some discussions about Worlds just in general and all that sort of stuff. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Without further ado, it's going to be, I believe, Munch just saying something with not very much context that we're going to have to jump into to begin with. So, yeah.
And I think even if they do win, I think it's like 3-2. I think if Weibo wins this series, it was a real messy series.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's got to be fast. So Munch is on it, like he's hit the nail, because I think it was something we talked about in playoffs and something we talked about on broadcast a lot. Was like Weibo, if they fail at a play, it's not the classic LPL team where like they'll knuckle down, they'll skirmish again, they'll get set up, like they're fight heavy. They're like that extra step forward where they'll double down, they'll triple down, they'll quadruple down. The dive fails top, they'll go again, and they'll go again. Like, that's why when it works, it's so oppressive, and that's why the early game is one of their strongest suits, and like they were one of the bloodiest teams. But that's why when it also fails, it looks hilarious, because you're like, what are they doing? What is this team doing? That has happened at Worlds a lot, to be fair.
Yeah. I will say as well, the drafts in this series are going to get wacky, because like we've already seen the Shy playing both Quinn and Graves top. Like, it's not like, I feel like the Graves didn't get talked about that much on social media because Quinn got played, but like, I know Flandre played Graves top, but that's a while ago. Things have been changed. Graves top is not really that much of a thing anymore, and he plays it in the World semifinals. And then you've got Crisp, who has like fully lent into the Enchanter meta. He was playing Renata like pretty consistently before everyone started jumping on Enchanters, but he's been playing the Heimerdinger as well. Is he as good at that as his opposite man? I'm not so sure, but at least he's like leaning into the potential meta. I think that there's a lot of angles for counter picks on both sides, and we've got players that are willing to bring out the shenanigans for the finals,
Yeah, I feel like if Weibo is going to win, they have to win all 3 games on blue side, honestly, because I think that like blue side, it's been pretty blue side favored, and T1 is the only team I think that has actually really looked good on red side in knockouts for the most part. So I mean, that's a big reason that I favor T1 really heavily, is I'm not sure that Weibo can win on red side, and I think T1 can. But I mean, kind of to what you were saying earlier, Hysterics, one of the things I thought was really cool about the Graves pick is that I thought it was predicated by the changes in the bot lane meta, right? I thought the reason he was able to play the Graves was because we had this Armageddon bot lane where it's, 4 range characters in the bot lane and junglers have to go down bot or your bot lane is going to get trashed. So if you draft like a heavy pushing bot lane that draws the enemy jungle down there, and then you're also playing like a heavy pushing top lane with a ranged character like Graves top, then the jungler can't play on both sides of the map, so it becomes really, really hard. I think if you do that in a more standard draft, you just get camped and it looks like absolute trash. So I think it was kind of cool within the context of the game, but yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to pull off because I think T1 is so flexible, right? Like the one thing that I think people are talking about is Faker's champion pool, and everyone knows Faker can play other stuff, but he has only played 3 champions, and in playoffs as well. That was something that got targeted pretty heavily, like when they played against Genji, and in the series before that as well. People were just banning out, Azir and Nico and whatnot, and you could do a similar thing and then pick away Orianna or whatever, and kind of try to push Faker into an uncomfortable decision.
I feel like for game 1 especially, that is inevitable. Like if Weibo aren't coming into game 1 banning out Faker to try and replicate what Genji did in finals, I don't understand. Oh well, I mean obviously there are different angles you could take, but I feel like that's the most obvious clear angle for a game 1 strategy. I'm curious what happens beyond that point if then T1 wins that game. I actually think there's a possibility that even like if Weibo wins a game on blue side, it's possible T1 still pick red. Honestly, they've looked really good on red, and they love having the counter pick for Zeus. They love having the counter pick for Crisp as well. Like I could see the series potentially draft wise going 5 games of, well, assuming we go to 5 games, 5 games of blue for Weibo, 5 games of red for T1 potentially. Although T1 obviously can play blue side as well.
Well, yeah, T1 famously very keen on having the blue side. If you guys can remember that,
I know all about
the
that
Polt
one, yeah.
interview. Oh, it's a goodie. It's a beauty. And he's not even with the team anymore, so I shouldn't really be bringing it up. But I really like the side selection conversation and the evolution to it now being like, oh, T1's the best red side team of the tournament. It's still like it sparks something in the back of my head that goes, wait, what universe are we in? What's happening? Where are we? It's very, very strange.
It's up there with 35 ping for me.
Yeah. Oh my god.
No.
Jesus. Please stop. Munch, to your point about replicating the finals, I just want to add a question to it because we were having this discussion last night, Azael Chronicler and I. Is the now addition of Orianna to those champions, is that going to change up your opinion on banning away mid lane? Because I think that it's almost impossible to be able to do that and get rid of, at least another one of those picks that can deny something like, Jarvan Rumble or something like that.
Well, what you can do is, we all know, I think Weibo chose blue side, right? So
yes,
you basically ban out the Azir and either you ban the Nico, you can ban either Azir or Orianna and basically force the opponent to ban the other one, or you first pick it. So I feel like it's not too hard on blue side to ban 2 target bans, especially when the mid lane bans are kind of priority bans anyway for a lot of teams. So I don't think it's too hard to pull it off, especially for game 1's draft. It's more like when you then see Zeus bring out something crazy and pop off and you feel like you need to target ban that, or if Crisp is pulling something out and that you don't know how to deal with, like when someone else is bringing crazy stuff out later on in the series that you feel you have to ban because you don't have an answer for it, that's when trying to ban out Faker as well, I think, will start to become an issue. But I think for the first draft, you just have to ban 2 of them and pick the other one, and it is fine. Especially if you leave a 0 open, because we've seen Xiaohu obviously very good.
That's his best. That's his best. That and Nico is best. That's the concern about mid, is that like with all the bans that go up against Faker, like Faker has a more extended champion pool than Xiaohu, especially at this tournament. I think Xiaohu, like outside of those 2 champs, maybe I'm trying to think if there's anything else that really stands out for me as his best performance.
I mean, Syndra is still there, right? Like that's one of his most played of all time, and we have seen that a little bit at the tournament.
With Weibo's new playstyle, or not new, but like with the Shy playing what he is, just go back to Sion mid. What about a Galio? Let's put him. Let's just relegate him again. Let's put him on supportive. because that's what he's great at doing anyway. He's great at initiating. He's great at like taking lead. And even though these champions are more supportive, like tank role, I'm just saying it'd be fun to see Xiaohu on something that again can start fights, because that's what he does on Azir anyway. Like he's very much a shot caller leader in this team. And I feel like for Weibo, with all the other moving parts going on, I feel like Xiaohu needs to be the stability. And that's why kind of rounding this out is that draft is an issue, because if Xiao doesn't get his champions, then it's like, man, okay, Fake is already, I think, favored in this matchup. I think Fake is already definitely the better player coming in both form and everything he does for his team. And it's like, God.
On that note, there's a really funny Chinese meme I've seen of like the community sentiment on the mid lane matchup. And all of the Chinese community is saying, like, each of the different mid laners bring their own strengths to the table. Like, Faker's really good at League of Legends. Xiaohu, really good at speaking Chinese. Even the Chinese community have completely abandoned Xiaohu leading into
That's
this
really
series.
good. That's good.
It's completely brutal. One thing I will say, look, both of these players are very famous for playing Rise. We need a control mage back in. Maybe Rise sees a redemption. If there's any two players to do it, it's these two, or maybe Scout gets in that conversation. But like, these are the Rise goats,
And Rise has been played, right? He was played top lane, I'm pretty sure. I think Keen played it.
I think he was played one game top. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So technically possible.
It's more likely that Shy would play it than mid lane. I feel like Rise is so garbage right now.
Yeah.
I do. The top lane meta is also super interesting. You guys were mentioning the Graves top. That's like been half of what Zeus has been playing in solo queue recently. He's just been spamming Graves. And when he first joined T1, he was sitting behind Canna, who could only play Graves, which was like, it's a couple of years ago now, but it's so cool seeing the whole loop around, because the meta in 2021 top lane, it was 2021, was a lot of Aatrox and a lot of Graves and like Nah and the regular stuff. And so if we do get back to this point where it's like the Shy and Zeus just playing Aatrox into Graves over and over again, would just be very funny in like a historical sense, because the Shy pretty much won Worlds playing Aatrox, and Zeus's debut was during the Graves meta, and it's all just coming full circle. Top lane's just really wacky.
It's crazy up there. I just can't believe, like, I know it's off of bot lane meta developing, but I just love, I don't think there's been many worlds where like there's been this many, I guess, small meta changes or minor tweaks within the tournament. You guys can correct me, you've been around for much longer than me, but like I know there's a meta that develops within worlds and kind of runs forward, but I don't feel like this late in the tournament we've had a worlds where it's like, well, actually the 2v2 lane, like utilizing control mages and, like Varus Asher back in the meta, and we've got like Heimerdinger's back in, Renata's flown in, like, and then top changes because of that. I don't remember a worlds where it was that profound at this late part of the tournament.
Yeah, a hard pivot.
I think the one I remember would be 2017 Worlds, the Ardent Sensor meta, because groups and play-ins and everything was all about the greedier and greedier and greedier and greedier and greedier drafts, and everyone was playing this super slow stuff where they're playing like Kog'Maw, Janna, and like all these types of things, and then it got to the point where then it did a full 180 to where everyone is playing Jace Caitlyn comps with like Karma, Poke, and all this stuff, and it became about hyper early game because people would just blind, like Kog'Maw, Orianna, like Ornn, whatever, and then they'd lose every single tower on the map by 15 minutes to Caitlyn Jace comps, and they'd get run over. So I think that one was kind of similar in this way, but this obviously feels maybe more wacky because it's like the picks are so kind of out of left field, I think, especially for bot lane.
Yeah.
I think that the best example of it this year is like Xayah sort of fell off of the map. When you think back to play-ins and the first couple of weeks of Swiss, it was like Kai'Sa Xayah. People were taking out like Tristana bot to try and deal with the Kai'Sa. Like everyone was like, these two picks are unstoppable. This is, yeah, like it was like, this is how you win draft. Is just get either, get these guys, ban out the other one and pick one. But now, like, I mean, Kai'Sa's still playing, and it's not like neither of them are not played, but the priority has completely shifted over the tournament. It does feel like there was like a singular moment where that suddenly happened.
True.
I felt like it was Crisp, honestly, that pushed us that way more than anything. Because when they just started blinding Renata and they were kind of crapping on bot lanes, right? I mean, I don't know how many games it's up to at this point because I can't remember if there was one game that it got missed in semis or not. But they were up to like 9 or 10 games going into semis of picking Renata or having it banned against them in a row. And I can't remember if it got through draft any of the games in semis, but Chris was playing it a lot, and I think that kind of pushed it in that direction. And then naturally, people were like, okay, well, if you're going to be blinding Renata, then I can play poke heavy lanes, and that's going to beat that. Okay, now if you're going to be blinding these poke champions, well, I can play, like Senna Callisto, or I can play, Varus Ashe, or I can play Caitlyn support, or it's just like kind of starts the arms race, I think. So it is definitely interesting. But I'm really curious from your guys' point of view, like what are the biggest stories and stuff that you think people might not know about the actual Weibo players? Because I think that's one of the things. Like it's easy for me to go and watch all the games, right? When I'm prepping for Worlds, when I'm prepping for the regions, I can go back and watch every Weibo game, and I can see like all the games that you guys have seen. But I think that one of the biggest differences between regional casters and the people who are prepping for it is that you don't necessarily like have the week over week stories and have access to the to the teams as much.
Go on, Joey. Start it up.
I mean, I think the one tiny one that I don't think will be relevant, but I'm just going to throw it out just in case, is Carcer is actually on this roster. I feel like a lot of people don't realize this. Super sub Carcer. I don't really know how Carcer became
I don't think Weibo realized it, by the way, because Carcer wasn't even at media day. They didn't even bring
Yeah, he just wasn't here. He wasn't even sitting down.
Oh well, no skin for you.
I don't think he'll play, but I just thought I'd throw it in there. There's another veteran for you.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest story that for people that haven't watched LPL that I feel needs to be put across is in the way that T1 weren't the favorite coming out from Korea. Weibo weren't even in the conversation of favorite. They weren't even favorite to be fourth seed. Like this is a team that, as far as I was concerned, going into playoffs, like this is going to be like sixth place at best. Like Weibo have scraped through by the skin of their fucking teeth to even be here at all, and then have managed to pretty much high roll the Swiss stage and then quarterfinals to make it semis, and then beat BLG. And to me, that's the point where they've like legitimized themselves, taking down BLG, who I think were a much more solid contender on average across the year, although I think, watching that series, Weibo were clearly the better team. But
for the first time
in terms of, yeah, exactly. It was like, that was, in my mind, a turning point for this team. And that, like, it has been a rocky road to get here. And if they show up, it will be, in my mind, miraculous that they win this tournament. Like, even if people are predicting Weibo and even if people want Weibo to win, I do think that by all accounts, it will be miraculous. It will be kind of a ridiculous win to some extent that this team even got to the finals in the first place. If they beat T1 now, it genuinely might be the biggest, like, I don't even know if underdog story is the right phrase, because it doesn't even feel like an underdog story necessarily. It feels more like, what happened? How did we get here? Like the fact that they only played one Asian team this entire, well, not quite, but, like,
they did that cheeky loss to KT as well. One.
They lost earlier on in the tournament to an Asian team, but aside from that, just cruised through playing against the Western teams, and then somehow beat BLG. And the one time they've beaten them all year, and now they're in Worlds Finals. Worlds Finals. How is that possible?
It's crazy that they kind of glided through the form. Like, I know I put a post out saying, you guys, after quarters, like, it's not just luck that they got here, because I mean, the Weibo I know, okay, all right, it's not just luck. I said not just, right? Because the Weibo I know...
We said the disclaimer earlier, it's fine.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, good. No, well, I just have to keep repeating just in case. Because the Weibo I know would lose to all those teams. Like, oh yeah, beat Western teams. Like, dude, everyone could have seen Weibo losing in quarterfinals. Like, even though I believed in them, it's like also to be a believer in Weibo, you also have to understand that the risk is up here and then, suddenly it's down here. Like, there is no in between for this team. And this team finding wins against Western team was already enough, like, to be like, okay, good. All right. So this team is some, has got a lot of skill. It's not just about luck. And they beat BLG, and that wasn't luck. BLG is a bloody hard opponent. They didn't even have a good win record versus team. And so, yeah, I just feel like The fact they made the finals is whack, but also they're very deserving to be here because if they verse JDG, I'm telling you, they probably would have beat JDG. I think they would have beat JDG. I'm just saying. They would have, mate. They did not just the win record all year, right? I've still got half a bottle of soju. I'm not
even your camera didn't want to listen to that. Like it immediately blurred you out.
It was only the one after MSI. Am I wrong? It was right after they got back
as well. They did play in spring as well.
Okay.
Let me run that query. Hang on.
Because I know they played right after MSI, but that was the most fraudulent win. I mean, that was right fresh off MSI when JDG probably hadn't even practiced yet, and didn't they have to play like a week after MSI or something? Yeah, exactly. Right. So when people kept referencing that, I was like, come on, bro.
I was so triggered.
This is the most fraudulent win. Yeah, even literally the first games they played, JDG probably didn't even scrim yet. A week after they win MSI.
Like the spring win was before JDG got into JDG form, spring, they didn't start spring just decimating everyone from the word go. There was a little bit of build-up period. Weibo played during that build-up period, it was spring playoffs where JDG became the super powerhouse kind of thing, towards the end of that spring split, not the entire year. So I feel like even the spring win was not fraudulent, but it was before JDG with JDG, it was when they were 2022 JDG.
It doesn't matter. They had ruler. They fucking had ruler. It doesn't matter.
Hey, Gen G had ruler for quite some time, and it's been since 2017 that actually worked out. So you never really know. There's an elephant. I spotted an elephant. It's in the room. It's probably in Hysterics' room because he's the one with the most scuffed setup. But the elephant is everyone making the comparison between Weibo and DRX, and a lot of what people are saying about the run that Weibo has made. Oh, look at how similar it is to what DRX have done. The parallels go even further, like Xiaohu, one of the best players to ever play the game that hasn't won a world title. Pretty similar to what Deft was doing last year, etc., etc. How do you guys feel about the continuous comparisons between, that run and this one? Joe, let's start with you.
I don't feel like it's a particularly good comparison. I don't feel like this team, the way that I view that DRX run was this team, as far as I could see, was just a totally different team by the time they got to Worlds. I don't know what they were eating. I don't know what changed, but DRX, if there was any team in history that could really replicate their Dragon Ball Z Super Saiyan, level up fucking Super Saiyan 7 or whatever, that was DRX. The two solo laners especially, just fucking solo killing everyone every game, just absolutely. They were, to be honest, some of the DRX wins to me felt a little bit like IG 2018-esque, where they were just absolutely bodying people in the laning phase and going crazy from there. I don't really feel Weibo, while they are scrappy and while, we have seen the Shy getting kills in lanes and stuff, I don't feel like it's a similar style of team. I don't really feel like Weibo have gone to this crazy form to be here. I don't expect Xiaohu to solo kill Faker a bunch of times in lane, I don't expect this to be down to, because I feel like with DRX as well, it was the pocket picks of Akali, Silas for Zeka, where he was able to manipulate people in lane and mind control them a bit. I don't just we're in a control mage meta. I don't really see, aside from this is an underdog in finals, that's pretty much where the comparison ends for me. They're both fourth seeds.
Yeah, they're both fourth in spring. They lost to fifth in playoffs. They both got sixth in summer. Then they lost to third place team in playoffs, and they both qualified through regionals to worlds, and they both made finals. So that's why people say it, right? I don't think anyone's saying that they're the same play style or anything like that. It's just a fun happenstance, right? It's
people like stories.
All this, exactly. All the same shit happened with these two teams. I think that is kind of why people do that comparison. Plus, I know you guys are more on the Weibo bandwagon, but let's be honest. I think you're the 2% here. We're gonna see the MasterCard fan vote, and it's gonna be the whole world, and then the other side it just says says Hysterics and Munchables. That's it. The whole world. It just says Hysterics and Munchables.
Yeah. And, undefined Hysterics Munchables, by the way. Yeah,
exactly. They just, I think people like the DRX story and want to relate to that because they want to believe that it is possible, right? Because I think it's going to be a 3-0 for T1. If I was predicting honestly, gun to my head, get this right or you're dead. It's 3-0. I think it is. Like I think that T1 has played much better. I think they're heavily advantaged in draft. I think they can win on red side. I don't think that Weibo can, and I think Xiaohu has had a really bad tournament. So I think there's like a lot of things working in T1's favor, but I think that people like talking about the DRX story because it gives them belief that this could happen again, because everyone predicted against DRX as well, right? Like everyone thought that T1 were going to dump on them because T1 always beat them in the final or always beat them in the LCK, right? So to me, it's just like the story angle. It's kind of like the fun angle there. I don't think it's about play style and stuff, because I fully agree. The teams don't play the same, and it's not this like the meta is actually favoring T1. It's not favoring Weibo. Whereas last year it was DRX that kind of had this beneficial meta shift for them, right? Where Deft is able to play his most iconic champions. Mid lane is all like Akali Sylas, which is just like his shit, right? So I think it's not there.
No, I think that the parallels are really interesting to talk about, but there are also like you talk about like some glaring opposites. There are glaring opposites in a lot of different ways, right? So you talked about the patch already. There's also like pedigree of player on DRX is in completely different places, which is like really, really cool, right? Because it was Kingen and Zeka that was sort of the unknown, the less quantifiable players who had been around for a long time, right? But they'd never been in that limelight, whereas Deft was like this guy everyone had been talking about forever. Now the same thing can be said for Weibo on the opposite side, right? The Shy and Xiaohu are like household names to anyone that's watched League of Legends over the past few years. Light and Crisp, although Crisp also a world champion and a god himself, are not necessarily those super famous players that are now occupying the other way. It's almost like this weird mirror between the two, because also Weibo have like the easy road and then somehow managed to beat BLG. Still not entirely sure how that actually happened. So I'll let somebody else figure that one out. It was breaking my brain even watching the series. But you look at DRX and they beat EDG, the defending world champions, and then Gen G, the team that everyone expected to win, and then we're up against T1 afterwards. So they'd already proven that they, could do it against the best in theory. And they went to 5 games every single time and all those sorts of things. And so like the difficulty of the road of the miracle run was definitely there for DRX. But then
it was harder for sure.
Yeah, on the other side of things though, because so many people have this very selective memory when it comes to Worlds just in general, we often remember the final. And we often don't remember very much else outside of that, right? And so I think a lot of the conversation that happens around, DRX last year was the fact that T1 choked in the final and then DRX won. And is that going to be the same thing now? Because if we walk away from this series on Sunday and it's a Weibo victory, that is what the conversation is going to be again. And what I want to do is figure out exactly how that how to frame this series in a way that doesn't equate to everyone saying that. Like if our language can somehow stop people from just saying like, oh, T1 did it again, they choked, and that's going to happen regardless. But if we can try and steer it towards Weibo being good as much as possible, that is going to be my goal.
Don't you think there's like a difference though between, it's like, so if Weibo wins but T1 looks good and Weibo just looks better, I think that's hugely different than if Zeus is just running it down, then, because you know what I mean? Because it's like he has not looked the same in his finals performances, and I think you would probably agree with that. So I feel like the discussion won't be about choking if it's an actual good series and Weibo win, but if Weibo came out and just 3-0'd T1 and Zeus gets ran every game, of course people are going to talk about choking. Like that's going to be all people are going to talk about.
I will say
it also Joe, you go.
There you go. It's okay. It's okay.
Oh, he's so kind, Englishman. I will say, like, see, for me, I was in the cinema last year watching DRX, right? And I was rooting for DRX because I was like, I know Zeka, I know Kingen, like I used to cast them, like I had a soft spot, right? And I remember, like, I was like, oh, this is such an insane finals. I think it was one of the most insane finals like I've ever seen. And I don't remember T1 choking in certain games, but I remember there was a conversation like, oh, T1 doing this, and T1 fans around me were like, oh, this is, they're not playing well. Or anyway, the context is like, I guess it's your perception at the time. You know, for me, for example, watching this year's quarters and semis, watching LNG, watching LNG and then watching JDG versus T1, my perception is from their perspective, because it's like, well, JDG team fight so much better than that. They looked uncoordinated. I think JDG choked a bit. I think LNG looked really bland and like, you know, undecisive, and a lot of their players like Tarzan was running it. And
Tarzan and
Scout
Scout. What was that? There was that one set of plays in mid lane where they actually looked like Faker mind controlled them into just running into each other.
You want to jab it up? Come
on.
Under
what
turret.
was that?
Yeah,
bro.
But
Fucking
that's
Reddit
what I mean.
thread. The Reddit thread where it was like Faker's micro movements made Scout completely sprint the mid lane. It's like, what are you saying, bro? What?
Oh my god, no.
Incentive.
It's one of the best Reddit threads I've ever seen.
Yeah, just simply can't comprehend.
This guy is a phenomenal fiction writer. Like, if he writes a book, bestseller instantly, because this is like nothing I've ever seen. I don't know.
But it's crazy.
I mean, I agree though. I agree completely that I don't know where I'm going with this. I kind of just interrupted you because I thought of that.
No, I liked it. I liked the tidbit. I didn't see the thread.
Oh, it was. I'll find it for you. Because it's
please.
It's magical.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
Like I will say, it's like, it's just about perception. Like for me, I went public and I got upset about JDG not playing, because JDG, everyone wants a golden road, and that's another narrative that we missed out on, making League of Legends history. But also JDG were that good of a team. Munch knows this. Azael, you all know this. Like, we came into this tournament spruiking JDG, not just because of they're the first seed, but it's like, this team is insane. Like the peak of JDG during regular season and playoffs, and like, finals, but back and forth. But MSI, for example, and it was like, holy crap, JDG is just that insane of a team. And when they don't perform to that level, you're like, oh, well, they choked. They're disappointing. And that's what semifinals was to me. But for T1 fans, they saw the quality in the class of T1 and maybe less of the choking of JDG. So they'll see like, oh, yeah, T1 were just a better team and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, actually, I think if JDG were playing at their peak, they weren't a better team. But it's just about perspective.
I think
I feel like
I remember what I was going to say before.
Too, right?
Like part of it's the meta change. I think it goes back to what you were saying as well, Azael, where it's like, look, if Weibo 3-0s T1 in the finals, then it will be, the conversation will be T1 underperformed. Like game number 4, especially in the JDG T1 series, where it's that dragon fight where Kanavi just walks in and dies, and then Knight whiffs his shockwave, and then Ruler just dives in to try and 1v1 and it's just like way behind and just gets wrecked, basically. Like I've never seen JDG not function in a team fight in the way that they just completely collapsed in game 4. And I think like earlier on in the series, they looked better. Earlier on in the series, we had more competitive games, but because the end of the series was so dramatically terrible from JDG, to me, like, especially my initial reactions to the series, it completely colored that towards JDG underperforming as opposed to how strong T1 looked, because I'm not used to seeing JDG do that. I'm not used to seeing Kanavi have such terrible, because Kanavi's been so consistent good all year. Like, I was amazed at Kanavi's performance. I mean, I don't think we probably shouldn't focus too much on JDG really. But I do think it's an apt comparison in terms of like choking versus not choking and that kind of thing.
I do like talking about it though, because we have to remember that this isn't like the T1 that we were talking about last year. This is not the T1 that we were talking about at MSI. This is not the T1 we were talking about at MSI last year. Like so many times we've had a T1 coming into a tournament and we're like, Kerry and Gamushi are the best players in the universe, and they could beat that guy on Saturn who's like extraordinarily good, blah, blah, blah. Like, we've been doing this. There's been so much hyperbole surrounding this team coming into so many tournaments. This is the first one where there's been zero. There was just, I had written them off already. I was like, I was preparing the entire LCK eulogy in quarters before they played. I was done. I was ready to go home. But that didn't happen because T1 showed up. And I think the story needs to move away from the T1 is expected to be this super amazing team. And we have to remember that they scraped by into the final this year. They managed to claw their way back from a horrendous second half of the split because of Faker's injury. Faker isn't necessarily like even fully recovered yet, right? Like there are a lot of things to have as far as context are concerned, and I think we're going to need to focus on that a fair bit in this final, because I think so many of the people watching will be just coming in, you know, and they're like, oh, is this that T1 that like last year like didn't quite make it over the line and they're like super duper good and everyone loves them, and oh, it's Faker, so yeah, obviously they are the best team in the universe, you know? Like I think that so much of what we have to do is to frame it around, and I think a lot of what you were talking about, Jake, like with the fact that LNG definitely underperformed. Like I was so disappointed because I love Scout, right? Like, and I love these players, and they just didn't get there. I wanted T1 to win. I wanted T1 to win 100%, but I wanted them to win against a good team, not what I saw, because what I saw was trash. It was really bad.
It's so sad because again, LNG's year, like their acclamation to finals, you're like, this is really our second seeded team. They don't get it because of points, but still coming as third seed, they really feel like our second best team. So having that end for them was so disappointing. And like, yeah, JDG weren't as disappointing as LNG, but you have to remember that JDG had higher highs. So naturally you had this higher expectation of this team because you're like, well, this team should be the best. The only good thing to come out of this, I will say, is the fact that T1 look insane, and the fact that it's not an LPL versus LPL finals, because Worlds is, you know, like even all LPL versus LPL semifinals, even though I like want my LPL teams to succeed, I'm also like, well, I want competition that's not domestic competition, because we've seen, you know, the majority of this already.
No, I would agree. I just wanted not 2018 again. Please, not Fnatic getting crushed by IG in Korea. Like that's not it. That's not how it goes.
Hey, look, if there's a team that's gonna crush finals and it be good in Korea, like surely it's T1. Like of any of the teams to get that massive stomp in Korea, it's gotta be T1, right?
I've completely forgotten that Busan library from that MSI, you know, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, totally.
I think that one of the funny things you made me like I got like a clear visual metaphor in my head when you were talking there, Atlas, about, you know, Faker. Like he's still not fully recovered from his hand injury and he's playing like this. I'm just imagining being like the kid from Whiplash, like hands bleeding while he's drumming away. Faker's there like bleeding profusely from his fingers, clicking away on the stage, like he's still dominating. Wow.
But it can't be like an instructor behind him. It's a version of himself standing behind him, yelling at him. You know, that's how it is. It's like there's two fakers in the room, and one of the fakers is yelling at the other faker to break his hand. That's what it is.
It's the different fakers that won MSIs and Worlds, like different versions of him throughout his. Anyway,
wow.
One final topic I do want to quickly bring up before, because I got to go give blood, but I do think the jungle matchup is something we've not really talked about, and I do think Owner has been playing pretty damn well this tournament. Like I think he's been on fire, and I do think Weiwei, like. I think a lot of this matchup is going to be on Weiwei's shoulders on how well he can manage Owner, how well Owner tracks him, and if he can influence the game in a significant way, especially when we're talking about the way that they want to play with like aggressive top side and aggressive bottom side. Like your jungle play has to be really fucking clean to be able to pull that kind of style off. So I do worry about Weiwei in the jungle versus a player like Owner who has been so good at punishing.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about Weiwei just in general and how he would go about doing it? Because I think like we were having this discussion, we do think it's a little bit Owner favored, especially with if he is able to keep up his current form. I've been a little bit of an Owner doubter over the last year, but definitely in this tournament, he's been absolutely amazing. But I've been really impressed by Weiwei, and I know that, you know, filling the shoes of Casa is difficult just in general, right? Like that guy's got a gigantic legacy, and then to come in and have people say, oh, he's definitely the better choice. Like that's why we haven't heard anyone talking about Casa, because no one's asking for him, because Weiwei's good enough, right? Like that is in my opinion already just impressive enough. But what is it about this player? Like how is he supposed to do this?
I'm going to be honest.
Sorry, Joe.
Look, I'm not a jungle analyst. I could tell you from a story perspective, I don't.
Give me the story perspective, Munch. That's what I want. That's what I want. Give me your narratives.
Many years ago, Weiwei was like God's gift. Like that team just somehow miraculously made the
I
magic
love V5
happen
with
and
Gold,
went
by the
so
way.
far. It
Yeah.
was
I
magical.
really wanted
It
them
was
to make
fucking
Worlds.
beautiful. It would
They
have
were
been
such
so
a
good.
fun team. Dude, well, there were two splits of V5 just being Pog. One of them was Weibo, but like, man,
and then
how,
there was
how
7
much...
splits of them getting 17th.
Yeah, they were
With that
breaking world
one
records.
glorious.
Yeah. But then like since that, Weiwei had kind of just a lackluster existence in LPL. Like played on BLG, played on Suning. None of it really worked. I think Suning was before V5, but it was all kind of middling, you know, like, and I think he's always been like a consistently decent player, but I don't, you know, when you think of certain players and you think like this guy is the best at this guy is the best at this, I've never felt like Weiwei is like number one in a particular category. I feel like he's a bit of a jack of all trades, which is, I feel like, why I don't have a super strong thought on how he's going to be owner specifically. But, you know, if there's one thing I'll say about Weiwei, when the momentum's there based on V5, he's on fire. And
Yep.
you know, in the same way that V5 had the magic all the way back then, I feel like Weibo kind of have a bit of magic going for them. So dare I say mojo. I think that it's possible that he can sort of ride that momentum. In terms of the actual gameplay, I'm not going to pretend to be an analyst that knows enough about, you know, how jungle's path to do certain things. Like I feel like I'm just going to put my foot in it if I try to go down that rabbit hole.
I would say one thing I do think that Weiwei has an opportunity with potentially is something I've been thinking about. Is it's like, you know, similar to what I was talking about earlier with Thard and Sensor meta and then how it kind of like went full circle. I do think there's an opportunity to go really aggressive on bot lane picks and go like full hard engage. Like if T1 is going to go double 80 carry and stuff, picking blitz, picking thresh, things like that, and then hard camping bot with Weiwei, because that's something that he's done really, really well, and something that I do think Weibo has done way more than other teams. When you look at a lot of the other top junglers that were still remaining in the tournament, like I was looking at pre-15 kills for different teams, and almost all of Weibo's kills are bot lane pre-15, right? So I do think there's a potential opportunity for them to just go, you know, fight fire with fire and try to play, you know, winning 2v2s with enchanters and whatever. But I think there is also potentially the opportunity, if you leave something like Ash open or whatever, to have T1 go double marksman and play like Blitz, Thresh, whatever you want to play, Alistar, Nautilus, and just like hard camp bot with Weiwei and try to just make the game about that. Because if those bot lanes start falling behind, they become trash real fast, because you have to be able to push and dominate the lane or you're absolutely piss useless.
It's also been a thing that T1 have lost to in the past, like quite a lot. If they lose, it's overextending Karyoguma, getting a little bit ahead of themselves, and then the whole thing starts to unravel. That could be where the copium truly lies, gentlemen. That could be it. That's the location.
Yeah. Crisp on Hook champion zone. Whoa, that's a rough pill to swallow. Anyone who's watched Weibo this year.
Man, we had some for like a moment. Like I hooked the gas up real quick, and then all of a sudden the pipe just went.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
What happened?
Handshake is basically a hook, you know?
Right?
Yeah, it's a soft hook. Anything like Leona Zenith's Blade, soft hook.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's still committal,
but
but
Thresh. You play Thresh, and then you can focus on the lantern instead of the hook.
Flash play lantern.
You just get the jungle in every time. Yeah. You play jungle blitzcrank, so you hook in Weiwei, and then Weiwei hooks. It's genius.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, if you're gonna get someone fed, Light is definitely, like, in my mind, the most reliable of the players on Weibo. Like, I feel like, in terms of like, let's say you go old school and you go like Thresh Jinx, for example. I feel like if you do get to later game team fights, like Light is gonna function well. It's just whether or not they can set up for team fights in a way that Light can function like that. You know, like I feel like when you look at him on more like regimented teams, Light's looked really, really good. But I don't know if Weibo is that team.
this is not a regimented team. This is not. It's not even close. This team is like you throw them through the gutter a bit, and they have to rise to the occasion to climb back up.
I'm assuming, like, in my mind, the way that Weibo is going to try and win this is to try and be stable in the bottom lane. Like, pick something for Light that can carry late. Pick Melio or Renata or whatever Crisp can get his hands on that he's comfortable with. And then they're going to all in on the Shy. And it's just live or die by whether or not he gets a champion that can hard carry the game. Because that's what, like, he's looked like the strongest part of Weibo. And I feel like they have been starting to play towards him more and more and more and more. except for the Ornn, right? But I mean, I think Ornn's a carry pick, but I've been influenced by LS a little bit too much. But that's what I think they're going to go and do. But I agree with Azael. I think that's what they should do, right? Is play towards ganking bot, let T1 have something that's going to shove, and then teach Crisp how to play Blitzcrank over the next, few days. And we'll be fine.
Yeah. 100%. You've already said what you need to say. The fact that the shy is the key. Don't listen to Munchables. It's not about light.
No, he's the key at the end. He has to exist at the end, right? The mid-game bridge is the shy, and the shy carries you to the promised land where light kills everyone. I
tell you what the shy has. He's got motherfucking mojo. Okay, and do you know who else had mojo? Do you know who Cydo Corporation used to own? They used to own Suning, okay? Suning made it to the finals, and they got completely dicked down. Let's be honest.
But Bin got a pet to kill.
If there's a team that's got mojo left, because the others have all died, then it's Weibo, okay? And, if they're going to do it, they're going to do it through magic, through mojo.
Did you do them in your pick'ems?
3-2. Easy 3-2 for Weibo.
So you did in your pick'ems right now.
Really hard.
if we opened your pick'ems right now, it'd say Weibo, right?
If you open my pick'ems right now, you'd discover that I have forgotten to do my pick'ems, so I need to go do that.
Same.
Same. But it will say Weibo.
Okay. We do our predictions, and they're all up on the Korean broadcast every time. We just handed in our predictions, and just to let you guys know, not everyone said 3-0 for T1. Not everyone.
Did anyone do Weibo on the Korean side?
Oh, or is there that a spoiler? Ain't no way. No, not even a chance. But there were 2 people that said 3-1, which I was very surprised about. Very surprised about.
A game.
So there is hope.
Is the shy's green.
And also, the shy at the moment is probably the second most famous. It feels like he's the second most famous League of Legends player. It is absurd how much the LPL community loves him, and everyone in the rest of the world loves him. It's bonkers. So the fact that the two of them, Faker and the shy, get into a final against each other, especially after the fact that the shy's glow up in 2018. Faker didn't exist that year. 2018 is the year that SKT and T1 fans just don't talk about. They're like, oh no, I was asleep during 2018. I just didn't exist. I was not there. That was not my year. I was going somewhere else. So the fact that now we've got Faker versus the shy, and both of them are coming back into some sort of form. Oh my god,
it's the world song.
It is.
Oh, if only Rookie was here. If only.
Oh my god, don't say it. Oh,
that would be perfect.
It breaks my heart.
Xiaohu's Chinese god, so I don't know.
Is
close enough.
And he's also the Chinese emperor of Shurima. I remember.
Yeah.
Since all the way back, he used to play both sides of that matchup, the Xerath and Azir, when that was a thing.
Oh yeah.
That was briefly a thing in Korea this year, and I spoke about Xiaohu way too much, and everyone was just like, "Okay, boomer." Even my co-casters. It was bad.
You still got your roots, man. Good work.
The key thing is that all happened in spring.
Yeah.
We're in summer now, and I guess we're in winter, autumn. I don't know, but yeah,
feels like winter.
I guess actually, that's the story.
It snowed in Korea today.
Up at Worlds. He's finally made it to finals. Can he do it?
Yep. But I think we're gonna have to stop it here, ladies and gentlemen, because Munch has to go and give his blood away. I hope. Oh, wait, no, it needs to be in Los Angeles for you to get me a new horse skin in Diablo, right? They've got a blood drive thing.
Is that
that's
a promotion?
A thing. Yeah, that's a promotion.
No
so
way.
they're at 98% of the goal, and right now you can get weapon skins and armor skins, but you get the horse the mount skin after they reach the next milestone. So if you could just take a flight to Los Angeles, Munch, and then donate blood. Then I could get a new horse in a game that I don't play.
Get paid to give blood. I have to do it for free. Give it away.
No, I think they do it.
Where's my blood money? I want some blood money.
Blood money. Let's clip that, shall we? Let's just clip that one and move on. Oh god.
Get paid for the freedom.
It's a higher grade.
Well, mine's the freest because they ain't paying me shit.
Well, just to let everyone that's watching know, I was recording this for the last 46 minutes. I did miss the very beginning when it comes to local recording because I just didn't think to post. I think I might be able to like dig something off my my Twitch thing, but like I always forget that VODs are dead in Korea. Like VODs just don't exist. Like Twitch VODs just aren't real. It's just totally dead. But I do have the last 50 minutes, and I'll try and post that on YouTube, and I'll add a video to the start or something like that to make it so that it at least looks like it's not just Munch coming in saying nothing.
As we go, though, I know Munch has to run. Can I just quickly get a Zal's prediction, like the last for 10 seconds?
Yeah. 3-0-2-1, I already said.
3-0?
Yeah, 3-0. I don't want it to be that, trust me, but that's what I think it's going to be, unfortunately.
It is a 3-2 Weibo. I'm just telling you, T1 are going to get
competitive. But
it's head versus heart, isn't it? I totally agree, Azael. Like, if you think about it, T1 should win. Yeah. Deep down, it's a Weibo 3-2, baby. It's going to be chaos.
T1's got a cool story
in a way that nobody's ever seen.
This is the first time where my head and heart, both agree that a T1 3-0 would be fine. T1 3-0, totally fine. I don't think I could handle them losing a game. If they lost a game, I think I'd collapse. Like I would have a mental collapse. And I kind of need my faculties. It'd be too much. So that's where my head and heart are both at.
Right, let's let Munch go because he said he needed to leave 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. We should definitely do that. So I will try and post whatever we have here for those that want to check out the VOD. And otherwise, thank you so much for joining me, gentlemen. And I will see you, Isaac, in like an hour because we're going to go and have dinner.
Yep.
And that's going to be great. You guys are both invited. Both invited if you can teleport. Yeah.
I'll come back.
Bye.
All right. Thanks so much, gents. And goodbye, everyone at home. Cheers.